Today's case shattered me in more ways than one because the concept of being scared of someone that you thought you once loved, that concept is awful in itself. But then when that one person does something to validate your feelings of fear for them, to show you that you did have a reason as to why you should have been scared of them, to show you that they are willing to take away everything that you love, is something that a human being should never have to experience. With that being said, big warning for this video, we're talking a lot about toxic relationships and about DV. So if you think that listening to this is going to harm your mental health in any way, shape, or form, please skip this video and I will see you in my next one. I mean it. I love you. It was October 30th in 2022. A woman living in a quiet neighborhood in Aurora, Colorado called 911. When the operator picked up, the woman sounded calm. You can hear concern in her voice. She sounds scared, but you can also tell she's trying her best at staying calm and collected. She's really soft-spoken, talking in a pretty low voice. She tells the operator that she has a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend and that he knows that he isn't supposed to be anywhere near her or her house. She's inside of her house when she calls, and she says that she just found his jacket, his jeans, and his car keys hiding inside of a closet. And then she says, quote, "I think he's hiding in the house somewhere," end quote. She confirms that she hadn't seen him, but said that she really feels strongly that he could be inside of the house hiding. The woman on the phone was Jessica Serrano, a mother of two, but thankfully that night her kids were out of state with family members. Apart from Jessica, in that house there were 3 other adults and 2 babies: 51-year-old Jesus Serrano, Jessica's father; 22-year-old Maria Anita Serrano, Jessica's twin sister; 20-year-old Kenneth Eugene Green Luque, the sister's husband, and they had their 2 babies with them, twins that were 1 year old. There was also 49-year-old Rodolfo Salgado Perez. He wasn't inside of the house, but he was renting an RV at the property. Jessica was calling about her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Joseph Castorena. Joseph and Jessica were not married, but they did have 2 daughters together, and they were in a very, very toxic, volatile relationship for years. Joseph had a criminal history of DV, and he was known to be very erratic, very aggressive, very angry, and just overall problematic. On his record, he also had history of CA, failure to appear in court, and violating court orders. And his behavior and his temper caused a lot of issues in their relationship, and as you can imagine, once they had kids, it only got trickier. And it sounds like for several years, they were in this cycle of constantly fighting and arguing, and then breaking up, and then making up for 5 minutes, until Joseph's temper escalated again, and then they would break up again. Only a week before that 911 call, both Jessica and her father Jesus had been granted a restraining order against Joseph. Jessica's sister had filed for one as well, but there was no confirmation on whether hers was granted or not. And there was a specific incident that was pretty much the tip of the iceberg that prompted them to do that. On October 23rd of 2022, Jessica walked out of work to find Joseph waiting for her. He was waiting for her by her car. He wanted her to go to lunch with him. She didn't want to, but he practically forced her to go, so she went. And after lunch, Jessica just wanted to go home, but Joseph wouldn't let her. When she tried to get out of his car, Joseph pulled out and pointed a small black weapon at her and told her that if she didn't listen, he would unalive himself or her. He then pulled her by her shirt and she fell out of his car. She made a run for it to her car, and when she tried to leave, Joseph grabbed a metal tool and completely shattered the driver's side front window. The glass went absolutely everywhere and it left little cuts all over Jessica's arms, and I can imagine that she was probably scared for her life. Following that incident, Joseph was arrested but then released, which that was not the first time that he was arrested for incidents regarding Jessica, by the way. But the day after, Jessica and her father went to court where they were granted the no contact protection order. The car incident happened October 23rd. They got the restraining order October 24th. The day after that, October 25th, a family member of Jessica saw Joseph in their backyard. Not only that, but security camera footage showed that he was there between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. And that brings us to October 30th when Jessica makes that 911 call. She's very clearly worried that Joseph is hiding in the dark somewhere inside of that house with them. She gives the operator all of this information, and just as the operator is letting her know that they have everything and they're sending officers out to the house, you hear a loud bang and then another one, and then there's some movement on the phone and you can hear Jessica screaming into the phone, quote, "Oh my God, there's fired at my house," end quote. You can hear her crying, saying that she doesn't know what's going on, and she runs and locks herself inside of a bathroom. Those loud sounds were the noises of her ex-boyfriends killing her family. Earlier that night, 21-year-old Joseph Castorena had broken into the house with a stolen weapon and had hid in the dark waiting for them to come home. When Jessica walked in, she noticed his belongings that were not supposed to be there, and she did the right thing. She immediately called 911, but sadly, it was too late. Jessica's father, Jesus, was fired at twice in the hallway hallway of the house. Jessica's sister and her husband were fired at in the basement. Their 2 babies were thankfully left unharmed. Rodolfo, who was a family friend but also the person renting an RV on their property, walked out of his RV when he heard the commotion, and then he was fired at as well. But Joseph wasn't done. At this point, he had 4 victims, but the person that he was really there for, his prime target, was Jessica, and he was looking for her, and he was going to find her. Joseph now has tunnel vision on finding Jessica and going after her with full intentions of doing the same thing to her. That is what he is there for. He finds her hiding in the bathroom. He's somehow able to get into the bathroom, but thankfully, by the time that he found her, he realized that he was out of bullets. He ambushed her, but Jessica fought back. She knew that it was time to fight for her life. There was a struggle. I can imagine the pure chaos, but Jessica is not giving up. She manages to throw him into the bathtub for long enough to give her enough time to sprint out of that house. And she running into the backyard and then into the street. Joseph chasing after her, trying to catch up to her. But that's when a police car was turning onto their street, and Joseph realized that it was either catching up to Jessica and making her his 5th victim, or giving it his one and only chance to escape. So he turns around and starts running the opposite direction, fleeing the crime scene. The first officer to arrive at the scene of the crime was Sergeant Paul Davis, and that clip from his body cam of him stepping out of the vehicle and Jessica running towards him, collapsing into his arms, crying hysterically, is the first clip that I saw of this case. And I can't even put into words how devastating that video is. How devastating the entire situation is. Jessica is absolutely heartbroken from what she just witnessed. Of course she is. But she also looks, this makes me want to cry, she looks so broken. She just saw the father of her children, an absolute monster, but even so, someone that she once loved and cared for. Even if it was years ago, this person she once let into her life just took the most important people in her life away from her, the most precious people, the most precious lives, out of pure desire to shatter her heart into pieces. She ran to that police officer screaming, "He just family, he just family." And then she starts screaming for her dad. In that moment, all you can hear is a little girl screaming for her dad. It's horrible. It is believed by authorities that Kenneth was his first victim. He had 1 wound. Her twin sister, Maria, had 2 wounds. And like I mentioned, they were in the basement. Her father had 2 wounds. He was found upstairs in the hallway. Rodolfo was found outside. All 4 victims were pronounced deceased at the scene. The 2 baby girls were found safe, unharmed in a bedroom. They were wrapped up in blankets to cover their eyes as they were being carried out, and it breaks my heart how quick they lost both of their parents. Jessica and the babies were taken to the hospital and placed under protective custody. Meanwhile, Joseph is still on the run. Officers are trying to track him down based on his phone's last location. And this is still the same day, okay? So now it's the early hours of the morning. It's still dark outside. And Joseph's last location was showing somewhere between his house and his parents' house that were pretty close together. Authorities went to both